KIIS FM presents our Women's Zoom Table, featuring influential women in entertainment and music, local businesswomen, and more. Part of KIIS FM's month-long celebration of women's history. Our Women's Zoom Table starts now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our KIIS FM Women's Zoom Table. It is me, Tanya Rad, and I'm here with Patty Rodriguez. Hello.
Hi, Tanya. I'm just enjoying hanging out with you. I feel like I don't get to see you that much.
I know. Isn't it so funny? It's like we talk to each other every single day, but yet, like, we don't.
No, you always make everything so fun. Just your energy is so good all the time.
Thanks, Patty. Well, we are here. We are doing this every single Thursday for the month of March to celebrate Women's History Month. So every Thursday at 4 p.m. So if you guys want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can subscribe, and then it just makes everything easier. But we are really excited. We have a great show for you guys today. We have Saweetie that's going to be joining us. We also have Nadia. Well, we'll start with Saweetie, but we have three really amazing guests and very different, I want to say very different sectors of, and very different spaces. So the goal of this conversation is to just kind of empower and ask, different women tools and different things that they've learned on their come up and their rise. So without further ado, let's bring in our first guest, Saweetie.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I think this month is a really important month. So anytime I can discuss the power of women, I'd love to do it. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really want to kind of talk to you about just, women and women encouragement, because you're single right now with Doja Cat, best friend. It's so good. But I feel like, women didn't team up like this even just 10 years ago, and like now women are like collaborating together and making music together and like not being so competitive. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that shift? Do you feel that way when you guys when you wanted to work together? Like, how did that come about?
I truly believe that the perception of women honestly used to come from the gatekeepers and from media, because if you look at 10 years ago, not a lot of women had access to social media, had access to record labels, had access to exposure. So I think it was a matter of just the pool of women not being that grand. But now there's great women out there with their own fan bases, making a name for themselves, all going at the same time. So I think that's why we see so many dope collaborations happening at once.
And when you guys when you work together, do you kind of approach it with like both your heads combined, or are you like, let's do more this or more that? Like, how is it when you work with another like strong female?
Oh my gosh. I actually had a really amazing, I can't say it yet because she hasn't announced it, but I'm working with somebody who's been in the game for such a long time. And I remember she's more of a pop girl. And when I gave her my verse back, she actually asked to talk to me on the phone. And I really like that, because when it's artist to artist, that's when you can get to know them. And it's just easier to communicate that way. But she was like, okay, girl, love your verse, but we got to make it a little bit more, PG. So I'm like, okay, girl, I got you. I can respect your wishes. This is your song. And I like when people can direct me to make sure that the collaboration is that and more. So I wish I could say her name, but shout out to her. And then when it comes to...
when it comes out, we'll know.
Right. And then when it comes to Doja Cat, I met her about 2 years ago in London. So I thought she was from London, but we were both doing our summer tours around the same time. And she's always been hella cool, hella supportive. So when it came to like the best friend song, I was like, she's the perfect girl for this.
I love that. I love that so much. For women who are, kind of wanting to be in that same space that you're in, they're aspiring to just create music and be in this industry. What's something that you learned early on, or maybe something that you've learned even recently that you wish you knew when you were just first starting?
Something that I wish I knew when I first started. To be honest, I don't know. I feel like I studied the game a lot. Like I love reading biographies. I love watching interviews, and we tell, and musicians do tell the experience of the industry through interviews if you watch enough. So I think I watched a lot of interviews. So nothing really came as a shock besides, everything that glitters in Hollywood isn't gold.
So true.
And what's some of the books you've read that keep you, learning and growing?
There's a book that my mom gave me. My mom has always been about manifestation. She was always about the power of your word and the power of your thought and the power of writing what you want down. So The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. She's an author from like way back in the day, but she was all about manifestation.
I love that.
I think Robert Greene's amazing. We had dinner.
No way.
Yeah, we had dinner about a year and a half ago. I'm a huge fan. I love his books, especially the 48 Laws of Power. It just makes you like a lot. It makes you wiser and it makes you a critical thinker. And then one more, let me see. I think it's like how successful people think.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah. So those are like 3 books that I really love.
No, those are good books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Power of manifestation. I think that's something that I mean, Tanya and I both do a lot, and
a lot.
Because it's a science, right? Like I think it's something that if you practice, you reap the benefits, and you see it unfold like in front of you as the more you practice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think it's writing one thing down is one thing, but truly believing it, it's the power of habit, which is another book that I love. But you have to practice it, and you have to make sure that you're exercising the power of your mind, thought every day, because it's not something that just comes and just falls out the sky. No, you have to practice it. It's a skill.
It's interesting that you say that, because I make vision boards every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I recently started to do was like actually really like, instead of let's say I put something on my vision board, like win a Grammy. Like, I'm not going to win a Grammy, but like, let's just say I do that. I like actually envision myself, like what I'm wearing to that show, like how it feels to walk the carpet. Like I like envision myself actually winning it, because it's like almost taking it to that next level.
No, definitely. And for those who are tuning in, some people call it manifestation. Some people call it praying. Some people call it meditating. A lot of different groups call it different things. However, it's just the power of thought and being specific with your details. So Tanya, I completely agree with you, because I did the same thing, girl.
Did you do that like when you were younger, kind of envisioning what you have now?
Yeah, but I think when I was younger, I knew that I'm a realist as well. I just knew it would take me that much longer, because I come from like a sea market city. I was raised in the Bay Area, and then I moved to Sacramento for high school. So in those areas, like being discovered is very slim to none. So I knew that I had to come to LA. But I think one of my first experiences of getting somewhere huge for me was my college, the University of Southern California. Like I literally wrote out, I wanted to be here at this year, and I had to do this, and that to get to USC. And I eventually got into USC, which was a big deal for me.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
And what are some of the affirmations or the pep talks that you give yourself every morning, or whenever you're jumping into something new? What are those words that you tell yourself?
Honestly, one thing that I started in the beginning of quarantine, because I feel like you had to be self-productive in the beginning of quarantine. Everything was shut down. Like everything was shut down, and it was an unexpected vacation at home for a lot of us. But I noticed the pattern of laziness, of just letting time go by, and I didn't want to be that person. So something that I would tell myself every morning was, do you want to be great today? And as soon as I said yes, I hopped out the bed, because it's an honest question. So I like to be great, but I have to ask myself that, because if I ask myself that, and if I give myself an answer, I'm not about to lie to myself.
Right. So that is such a great question to ask yourself every morning. Yeah.
Like, do you want to be great today? And there are days, I mean, there's very few of them where I don't feel good, and that's okay. But I have to be honest with myself. So those days most likely fall on like a Saturday or Sunday because I have time. There's a little bit more time for me to just lay in bed a couple extra 30 minutes to get my thoughts together. But I ask myself that every morning, and as soon as I say yes, I hop out the bed.
That's so good.
That is so good. So we actually had BB Rexa on doing this with us last week, and she was talking about something that I found really interesting. I think a lot of women can relate to, kind of just in any, not even just in the entertainment industry, any industry. But when you're a female and you have a strong point of view, like if you walk on a set and you're like, no, I want the video to look like this. Do you sometimes feel like you need to be nicer because you'll be labeled as like a diva? Or like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, do you feel like you need to approach things in a different way? Because as women, if we have a point of view, we're seen as like bitchy or diva, but it's not the same for men.
You know what? I think that when you go onto a set, when you go anywhere in life, when it comes to business, you just need to be stern. I think stern is respected. And if someone has a problem with that, then I feel like the problem is with their self. I mean, I've seen many approaches. I mean, some, even men and women, sometimes their aggression or sometimes their passion is too high, but people have to understand when an artist is coming to set, it's the artist's set. So it's
Right.
like whether of how they deliver it or not, as long as they're respectful, respect their wishes, because we go through a lot. We're probably paying for the set to even happen. You're here working for us. And that's why I have an issue. My issue is, as a woman, I feel like people try to guide us too much. People try to father us too much. People try to just like this is some street time, but like son you. And it's just like, no, I'm a grown woman. I know what I want. So respect my wishes.
It's so important too, because at the end of the day, like you are Saweetie. Like, yes, you belong to a label, you have managers, you have people, you know what I mean? Like you have all these people, but at the end of the day, like you are your own brand. And it's like, it's so important because I think, I know I can, fall to this too. You get other people's opinions or other people's like, whatever of what you should be. And sometimes you're like, it's hard.
I think a great realization for me as a CEO, as an artist, as someone who runs my own team, I think the best thing that I could have ever told myself was that it's okay to make a mistake. Because when you get to a point where you depend on too many opinions, that's when people start feeling like they can guide your life, guide your schedule, for what they think is best for you, but only you know what's best for you. So there came a time where I'm like, I appreciate all that help, but I really have to start making my own decisions.
That's a great realization. Like, I think a lot of people could benefit from having that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like we're fearful to make a mistake,
Right. And sometimes, let me just be candid. Sometimes I want someone to tell me what to do. So if it goes wrong, I can blame somebody. But I had to be a big girl one day and be like, hey, because I reflect a lot. I'm a reflector. I believe it just makes your life better. So I was like, that's not a CEO mindset. That's not a grown woman's mindset. And I need to start taking accountability. So this probably happened like a year and a half ago. But ever since then, I've made my own mistakes. I've owned up to them. But it's created the faith between me and myself that much more stronger.
And I was going to ask, how long did it take you before you began, working toward that mindset? But you said that you started a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. But what led to that moment? Sometimes, as human beings, we're just so stubborn, and we're not we don't like to admit that we make mistakes. So it's like, to come to that moment, something must have happened in your life to be like, okay, this is not working. I need to shift my mindset to this.
Well, people kept giving me advice, and I kept making the wrong decisions. So I was like, hey, if I'm going to make the wrong decision, it's going to be on my watch. I went to college. I know how to be a critical thinker. I'm a businesswoman, so I need to start acting as such. I feel like I said, as a woman, everybody wants to take care of you. Everybody wants to guide you. Everybody wants to counsel you. Everybody wants to give you advice, because women aren't seen as powerful sometimes. And I had to take that power back. So I was like, I appreciate the care, and I appreciate that you guys are helping me, but I need to start taking accountability for my own decisions.
And did you see how your life just completely changed? Was it an overnight shift, just seeing how different?
No, I think it would take me a while to make decisions because I would really, you know what the problem is? People don't like to think. And I'm not talking about women. I'm not just talking about I'm just talking about people in general. People don't like to think. Like let's really be honest about things because
So true.
like when you're like I'm a CEO and when I deal with different people, it's just like, did you even think before you did that? Or what was the thought process? Like I really have to ask people, especially people who I don't agree with. And when you're really talking to people, people cannot explain themselves. And I don't want to get into the scientific facts, but there's documents not documents. There's like research out there that shows that technology and phones and things as such have made people not think for themselves because we have maps, we have Google, we have all these other things that are thinking for us. So
we're not using our muscle up here.
We're not. So I was like, girl, you got to use your muscle.
It's so true. It's so true. Do you do you have like a specific like in terms of just balance with life? Like I feel like you're very career focused, obviously. Like I mean, look what you've done. Do you kind of have some sort of anything like in your calendar where you're like, I make time for an hour for my workout, or I'm going to make sure I meditate for 30 minutes? Or like, do you kind of look at your calendar that way and make sure like you keep a balance in your life?
I definitely love working out. I haven't been working out though because I hurt my back. And then once I stopped working out, I was like, wow, this plays such a huge role in just my work ethic. Like after I work out, I'm ready to take over the world.
Totally.
You know, I just, my body feels different. So I think I took that for granted. I'm getting like back rehab right now, so I'll be good. But I just, it just made me appreciate the ability to be able to work out. And I took it for granted. I'm like, oh, gym, oh my gosh, I don't want to go today. But it's just like, now I'm like itching to go back to the gym.
No, it's so true. I feel the same way. Like I if I don't get outside and do some sort of workout every day, like I don't work as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting, but it's like, it's funny because I also think too that there is like a little bit of, if you're not working all the time, it's not good enough. Do you know what I mean? Like you need to constantly be like working all the time. And I feel like over time you realize that there needs to be a good balance.
Right. You know, I find myself doing that sometimes. Like when I have days off, like I'll kind of like panic because I'm like, I should be working. And for anybody who feels like that, the way that I like kind of compensate for that is by reading books, by painting, by doing other hobbies that still make me feel productive because I don't like not working. I'm addicted to it.
I love that. Uh-oh. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Sorry. My computer just went totally dark. I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to do the dance, but every time I dance to your song with Doja Cat, like it's so embarrassing. I send it to my best friend all the time. And she's like, Tanya, I need you to stop. So I was like, you're my best friend.
All of us at the club.
For a second. Wow, that was weird. Sorry, I'm back.
I know. Sorry, mine did that too. But I wanted to ask you: are there other women in the music industry that you want to work with, or are there any other ones that you kind of like look up to and admire?
I really want to. This is like I feel like I'm hitting two birds with one stone. I definitely would love to work with Rihanna, and I really love what she did with beauty, with skin, with fashion, with her music, and with business. I think she's a great blueprint for all women. I like making money. So it's like you need to have different avenues that are lucrative in order to get money. So I love everything she's doing. She's hot. She's a fashion girl. And she looks good while she handles her business. So definitely Rihanna.
That's a great one because I think she was, I mean, I'm not gonna say like a pioneer in it because I feel like women have been doing this for a long time, but it's like she's not just a singer. Like she's like doing all these things and doing them so freaking well. It's amazing.
That's proof that, you know, as women, I think we're biologically multitaskers. Like we can juggle a lot, you know, and maintain some sanity at the same time. I think that's one of our superpowers.
Yes.
So when we see strong women like Rihanna just literally owning everything,
It's
just
so
taking it,
awesome.
it's so yeah. That's a good one.
Definitely.
So we really appreciate the time, and I wanted to kind of let you, if anybody that's listening, if you want to like share anything, any piece of advice that you have ever gotten with everybody before we let you go.
I think the best advice is just me learning from me, and that's just to think. I think we should all start thinking. I think we should all take responsibility and accountability for our actions. I feel like it would just make the power of the women race that much stronger. So I think we have God-given talents already, like multitasking, being empathetic, knowing how to love, knowing how to just comfort. So shout out to all my women out there, especially my bosses who are taking care of business every day with a smile on their face.
I love that so much. Thank you seriously so much for the time, and just obsessed with all of your music, everything that you do, everything you stand for. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Of course. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Patty.
Bye, Saweetie.
Happy Women's History Month, y'all.
I'm gonna tag you in my next when I post my next best friend dance.
All right, bye, besties.
Bye. She's so cute.
She is. She's so cute. Like, she's so cute.
Yeah.
And I just
Love her mindset. Okay, so our next guest, before we bring her in, I am wearing a period sweatshirt because our next guest is Nadia Okamoto, and she is just so impressive. I can't even like explain to you everything that this woman has done, and she's so young. So let's just bring her in because I have so much to talk to her about. Nadia, are you with us?
I am. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like to follow Saweetie without sunglasses or any makeup, I'm like, oh gosh, but thank you for having me.
Wait, I'm so excited because, okay, so I know, so you co-founded August, which is like a lifestyle brand, to kind of reimagine periods. And then I know that you also started this, the period.org, which is, they're two separate things.
Yes.
But both of just crushing.
Yeah, we're trying.
And you're 22.
23.
Oh, you're 23. Now. Oh, grown now. I'm just
incredible.
I know. I'm so impressed by you. So, I want you to just touch on, because you are so young and you're just like crushing it, how you had the thought to start this. First of all, the business, and then the nonprofit. Like why you wanted to start this, and then how you went from your thought of like I want to do this to actually putting it into action.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think that a big part of it is that I'm just so passionate about periods. And I know it's not the most common thing to be obsessed with, but I think that it's part of why I'm still here fighting for it, right? Because this is kind of what I feel like I would be doing even if it wasn't a job, if no one was paying me. But like, it's just a thing that I get very, very amped up about. To be honest, I think that, I never dreamed of being a period advocate, but when I was 16, I started hearing about period poverty directly from homeless women who were experiencing it. And they were telling me and sharing with me their experiences of having to use things like toilet paper or socks or brown paper grocery bags or even cardboard to take care of their periods. And at the time, my family was experiencing housing instability. And so it was a time when I was really, really hyper reflective, I think, on like privilege as a spectrum, right? And I think it was this big privilege check of realizing, oh my gosh, even at this time when my family's going through this thing, I've never had to use trash to take care of my periods. I've never had to worry about having access to a clean bathroom or to a clean pair of underwear. I've never had to worry about access to period products because I either had a sustainable product or we had enough money to be able to afford period products. And I just kind of became obsessed with it, started researching, and learned that in 2014, when I was 16 and getting started, 40 states in the US had the sales tax on period products, considering them luxury items. Right. But products like Rogaine and Viagra were considered medical necessities, like essential goods. So got absolutely obsessed with it, couldn't stop thinking about it. And to answer your question, I decided to start a nonprofit, and I knew what a nonprofit was because it's what like my mom and other adults did to like help their community. That's all I knew. And so that's how I started. I just was like, okay, I need to get period products to people who need them. Well, a nonprofit seems to be the way to go. I'm just going to start asking people around me, like, whether it be my mom or even Google, like, what is a nonprofit? What is the IRS? What is a board of directors? What is a Form 990? Filled out every governmental form, like myself with my co-founder, had our parents sign it. And then, you know, I didn't have any personal money. So it was like, let's hustle and try to raise money. Like I used to just really, really celebrate when someone gave me a $1 bill. And then it kind of continued going on using social media, learning, then starting to get the bigger sponsorships, and then starting to work for product donations. And fast forward 6 years, by the time I left as executive director, we had distributed about 20 million units of products and had chapters like in all 50 states and 50 countries registered. And it's, you know, I fell into the business side actually a few years ago as I was doing a lot more Gen Z marketing. I was chief brand officer at a Gen Z marketing agency and ran for office. And I think really fell in love with this idea of creating social like awareness and getting people to mobilize from like social media.
Wow.
I mean, it's so impressive because you say those things like it's just like, oh, I got a this and a that. And like those documents are really hard to figure out. Like it's not easy. You know what I mean? Like that you just Google like how to start a nonprofit. Like that's so impressive. And it takes a lot of like determination and a lot of just inspiration from like
and you said 6 years ago, right?
Yeah, I'm
you were still a teenager.
Yeah, no, I started when I was 16, but you know, it was really the same. Like when I was 18, I wanted to write a book and I Googled how to write a book.
Yeah.
And you know, those like wiki answers where it has like the little pictures. I remember it said like a book proposal. And then I Googled book proposal, saw like layouts of it on Google Images, cold emailed any literary agent I had. And then a year or so later, my first book came out. With my dream publisher. But it was the same thing, running for office. You Google how to run for office. I learned that you had to be 18. And then I was like, okay. And now, you know, starting this new company, August, this is my first time on the brand side, really, right? You know, it's my first time raising capital. To be honest, a year ago, I don't even think I really knew what like VC stood for. And like, I didn't know the world of like in like raising capital or anything or supply chain. And to me, I think the reason I'm here is because I wake up every day and my imposter syndrome just like tells me I don't know what I'm doing. And I channel it into like asking a lot of questions, both from resources in front of me, but also I like surround myself with people who are smarter than me, can hold me accountable, who have more experience than me. And I'm always hungry to learn more. And I think that humility, which, you know, is very much like a product of imposter syndrome and my my mental health challenges, is a huge part of, I think, what keeps me curious.
You know, it's so crazy that I think everybody has, like, I have imposter syndrome so much. And we talk about it all the time. But I do think that it's like, I think it's something that, and it's funny because I always thought it was so unique to me. Like, I was like, nobody else feels this way because like they didn't have this experience that I did, whatever, like starting out in this industry. But it's like, I think so many people have it. And I do think that it's like, there is a goodness to it because it does keeps you very hungry. It keeps you wanting to ask questions. It keeps you kind of like on your toes. So it's like, it's not the worst thing, but it's also very frustrating.
Yeah, I think I actually feel the same way. I know with Saweetie, you were talking about like addiction to work. And I think it's really fascinating because like I very much started my career as like a social entrepreneur in this era of like hashtag hustle porn and like this constant conversation of like never sleep, always working. Like
right.
And to be honest, you know, I think that it's really interesting because imposter syndrome, you know, in the same vein, like you can use it to your advantage, but when it's to the extreme, it becomes like more dangerous. And I think that something I really had to grapple with in the last year is the same thing happening with work addiction, right? Like we kind of joke about being workaholics, which I totally resonate with. But like last summer, I actually spent several weeks in a residential rehab place working through mental health, but also doing addiction treatment to work, right? Because for me, I really started, you know, when you start your career young, I found my self-worth through work, right? So when work isn't going well, my self-worth is like, bleh, you know? And so much of, I think, what my last year has been, especially in quarantine, when speaking tour comes to a halt and so many changes in job and really having to reflect internally, I think that it's been like a big learning lesson of how do I start this company and how do I build this team in a way that really, really prioritizes both like my own sanity, but also making sure that my team is taken care of and making sure that like we are setting a good example for our Gen Z community around this idea of like self-care in a way that isn't so commodified, but is like very genuine.
You mentioned hustle porn, and I also started my own business 6 years ago, and as a woman of color, Latina, I always, I didn't have the resources to search how to get a business license, how to, do all these things that you need in order to build a business, even how to get capital, same. And I feel that if it wasn't for social media or the internet, I wouldn't have the business that I now have. But there's also a dark side to social media, and it's, you mentioned hustle porn, and sometimes women, we look at other women and we ask ourselves, why am I not there yet? And that causes you to have like want to work even more. So you're like, I don't want to stop, because if I stop, I'm gonna fall behind, and everyone's moving on this train, and I just don't feel like the train's picking me up. Like I'm still waiting on this train. So it's like, well, how do we balance that? And how do you balance that? I know you mentioned, sorry, my mom just walked in. Yeah. So how do you balance that to, I think we're never, I don't think we're ever going to just wake up and not feel we're constantly needing to be better.
Something's always missing.
But like there has to be some balance.
It's really interesting that you bring this up, because I feel like our whole society is really reckoning with this, right? Like we hear a lot more discussion around like scarcity versus abundance mindset. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely something that I struggle with too, because like, when you grow up and you have experienced any sort of like financial instability, like you have that feeling of like, you never have enough. Like your body is kind of traumatized in the sense, like you don't let yourself rest. You don't let yourself like kind of stop, because it's that FOMO of we live around multiple platforms, having multiple accounts on multiple platforms that give us a measurable for external validation. Mm-hmm. So it's not, as a young girl growing up, just being about, let me be comfortable with my body, but it's about how do I start presenting my body in a way that I can have like measurable external validation. And while I am such a big fan of social media, it's like how I've mobilized, how I've grown my career. It's my biggest source of income, and doing modeling and influencer stuff. It's also been like the biggest issue when it comes to all things mental health, like ruining my friendships, like trying to find genuine friendships. And
exactly.
I think that this is where I think that a lot of it has to do like with creating space in your day. And I'm not a good example of doing this. This is my goal. Creating space in your day where you're doing things that are just for yourself, that do not show up on social media, right? Mm-hmm. Because I catch myself going to like dinner out, like outside of the house. And I'm like, oh, I have to take a picture, because if I didn't take a picture and post it, like, did it really happen?
Totally.
Right? And it's the same thing with building my company. Like I remember being on tour, and you can see it on my social media. Like in the last 2 years, I would post these things and be like, oh my gosh, so tired. Like I've been on a red eye 4 nights in a row. And it was really this way of like, kind of complaining, but also like
showing off.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
It's this battle of who is the most exhausted, who is the most tired, who has the most shit to do. And a big part of my last year has been, how do I deconstruct that within myself? Like, yeah, creating a company is really hard. There's a lot of rejection in it, but I am like actively every time I pick up my phone being like, I don't need to post about how I've been on emails for 8 hours. Like that can just be for me. Like,
you know what?
God, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Something interesting that's I actually heard from a guest I had on my podcast. This was like maybe a few months ago at this point. He said he puts in his calendar for 15 minutes every single day. He visualizes his future. So whatever that is, whatever space is, it's something different every single day. And I took it and I kind of adopted that. And I write for 15 minutes every day in a journal, and I call it my future 15. And that way I feel like I'm being productive and like proactive and really envisioning what I want for my future. Day to day, it's different. So like one day I might be writing about like what I want for my career. One day I might be writing about what I want for my personal life. One day I might be writing about something that I want for my body or health, but it's just 15 minutes every single day that I carve out and to write in this thing. And it's like, it's good. It's just for me. And like, I don't know, it's something that just like feels really good and like fuels me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do want to there was two other things there was one other thing that you said about, you were cold emailing for your book proposal. And I feel like that is the most underutilized form of anything, because emails are free, everybody. Like emails cost you nothing. Keep being persistent. Don't be annoying, but be persistent with people and follow up. Like find people's emails and just ask questions and reach out that way, because I feel like everybody's always so hesitant to use that as a tool. And it's like, it can get you like far. Like it got you a book proposal. You know what I mean? Like you were just emailing people, editors and stuff. And it's like, I think that that's such a underutilized tool that people forget about.
As long as you're polite,
right.
And I mean, the worst that can happen is they say no to you or that they don't reply. I mean, that's really it.
I mean, I think it's also like sliding into people's DMs.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
It wasn't even just for the book proposal. Like reaching out and being persistent is like the only way I am here, right? Like every advisor I have, every team member I have is from like someone sliding into someone's DMs and being like, let's connect offline, right?
Let's
and
work
I think
together.
And that's the thing that I think that, I really try to hold like in my own heart too. And it goes back to like what needs to be shown on social media versus like what really needs to happen like offline, right?
Yeah.
And I think that for me, like I really try to approach relationships, especially with mentors, in like a very genuine way, because for me, like there's so many people who are now investing in my company or are teammates of mine that I've known for years, and never when I met them was like, how do I use them? Or like, how do I, bring them in later? But I was just like, I'm genuinely inspired and energized by this person. I feel in my heart, like there's something we can do together, and you just wait for that moment. Right. And I think that like, I that's why for me and my team, like I like really, really get through all of my DMs and respond to everything as much as I can. And I wanted to bring into this conversation, like, one of the beauties of social media as well is like finding community through really, really hard times, right? I talk very openly about, living with complex PTSD, from growing up with sex abuse in my family. And it's something where I felt so alone in that, felt so alone in my depression or my imposter syndrome or like my other mental health challenges. And I found community online, right? And at the same time, the Asian American community is really hurting right now, given the events that just happened in Atlanta. And one of the things for me, like being in isolation, like you have all of these emotions, and I'm like, where do I find this community? Where can I find space to grieve? And that's where I've been able to find on social media and like really building out and having real conversations on new apps like Clubhouse, right? I think that social media is really this double-edged sword, and it's really just figuring out like, how can you use this for personal or professional reasons, but also how do you set limits with yourself, which can be really, really hard to do for sure.
It's funny that you say that, because I think I find the same thing through social media. Like I found this like sense of community, and also like I felt this kind of responsibility also, because for me, like I love opening the conversation about periods and like tampons. And I'm just so fascinated with like the whole world, because I feel like it's something that we don't talk about. It's like, oh, women are fine. They have pads and tampons. Like they're good. And it's like, no, like we make a new car every year. Like we should be like getting new feminine care products. And like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's got attached this weird stigma where like men get uncomfortable when you say like, I need to go change my tampon, or like just things like that. And it's like, I want to be that conduit to the people that follow me, you know what I mean? Where women are if they're uncomfortable about like UTIs or things that just happen to all of us as women, but like nobody talks about them, but they're so normal and it happens to all of us. And so it's like, I love what you're doing, because it's like, it's just kind of opening and creating more of a conversation around these things that people can really have a lot of, trauma around.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why we are creating August, right? Like, me and my co-founder, we kind of started getting together and then started having these conversations with the growing community. And we were like, does anybody like their period care? right? And everybody's like, no, like it's like nobody you talk to says, oh, I love getting my period. It's absolutely fine. There's pain-free. I never stain the sheets. Like it smells fine. Like I have no insecurity. And we were like, you know, from writing my book, one of my favorite chapters to write was about the commodification of period products over the last century, right? Like period products haven't even been on the mainstream market for 100 years yet, right? And yet it has been around for so long, and the period products look very similar to what was, you know, what was patented back then.
It's so wild to me.
And even more so, like how period products have been sold. It makes me so angry. I really think is around this idea of perpetuating shame around your period, right?
Yeah.
Convincing menstruators, primarily women, to feel ashamed of their period so they buy products, right? Literally capitalism creating this engine to continue perpetuating period stigma, right? Saying, buy our products so that you can feel free, confident, you know, shameless, so that you can hide your period, forget you have a period, go on that date, wear that white tennis dress. And I think that so much of what we want to do at August is really say, no, first of all, periods make human life possible. They might not be so enjoyable, but like the reason we're all here is because your mom got a period and then 1 month she didn't and now you're here, you know?
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, you know, we're going to try to keep iterating and improving on period care because we believe that period care can be different and it can be better. It can be better for your body. It can be better for the environment. And so I'm really, really hyped for it. I'm really hyped.
Okay, I like actually got pissed because I've been using tampons since I was when I got my period, 13 years old, 14 years old. And I just discovered the menstrual cup, okay?
Yeah.
I am obsessed with it. I'm like, I put that bad boy.
I don't understand it yet.
No, Patty, I will like do a tutorial and like send you a video because it's life changing. I wake up in the morning, I put my cup in, I go about my day. I hosted all this stuff. I did the Grammys all day Sunday. Didn't touch it, didn't think about anything.
You're
it was just
kidding.
there. I get home, pull it out, clean it out, put it right back in, go to sleep. I'm not throwing tampons in the trash. It's better for the environment. I'm not worrying about it. Like it's made my cramps less. And I'm like, I just found out about this maybe 5 months ago. I'm like, and I'm in the period world. Like, I'm in this world. And I'm like, how have I not even heard about this thing? It's so crazy to me.
It's so real. And like, you know, I've gone back and forth on menstrual cups just because I do think it's the most sustainable option out there. But for me, like I kind of have, sometimes it makes my periods better. Sometimes it makes it more painful. And I will say though, something that I've been really fascinated by is like, we all talk about sustainability, but yet like over 90%, I think, of people who have periods like use disposable products, right? Yet current period products, for the most part, take 5 to 8 centuries to decompose, right? And I think that a lot of what I hope to do is like, how do we meet people where they're at, but provide them more sustainable, ethically made options as we continue to push the boundary on like what sustainability looks like?
I mean, Nadia, you are, I could talk to you for all day. We so appreciate you taking the time. For everybody that's listening, where can they find you? Where can they see your product? Like give us all the deets.
I'm just at Nadia Okamoto, my name on social media. And August is at It's August on Instagram and It's August Co everywhere else.
Amazing. Thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Oh, you'll be talking to me, honey.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Oh, she's so awesome. Only 23.
23. I'm like,
I was not doing that at 23.
No, I'll tell you, I was not doing that. What was I doing at 23? Getting drunk and eating Taco Bell at night.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm excited for our next guest, Linda Garcia. She's a good friend of mine. We met, my gosh, I'm going to say 9 years ago. Ah, there she is. So we met 9 years ago. You're muted, Linda.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
hi.
Hi, Linda. Meet Tanya.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Tanya.
So I met Linda. We met 9 years ago, maybe, right at a party. And you were at Netflix at that time. And then we just became really good friends and just really connected. There was this energy that we both had that we shared. Like always just yearning for more, especially being two Latinas from, LA. And then she did something really, really drastic, like something that I would never dare do. She packed her bags from LA and moved to Texas. Before people were moving to Texas. Like she was like,
Why?
Because I just came to a place where I had my 4-year-old son, and I really needed to be realistic. In the neighborhood that I was living in, houses were $1 million. They didn't look like $1 million. And I just had to come to terms with what is more important to me in terms of the quality of life. If I wanted to go to a certain place, I needed to make sure that I did it before so-and-so time to get to the west side, or if I had to go to the east side, I had to choose between two things, get one done early in the day and one, after lunch. And I was just done. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I want to see land. I want space. I want to be able to afford a nice education for my son.
You broke my heart when you made that decision, but then something happened last year that completely shifted your life. And I want to finish introducing you, Linda, because you've created In Luz We Trust. And it's literally a home, a community where women, especially first-generation American women, are coming to understand how to build generational wealth. And that's something, Tanya, that I talk to you about a lot.
All the time.
You're first generation American. So you navigated life to kind of like for the first time too with your parents. That's something that we share.
Yeah.
Navigating this country for the very first time and building the foundation and these bricks of here in this country.
Yeah.
And something that's missing in our community is the tools to understand how to build wealth and how to own assets. And last year when the pandemic hit, I think what happened with you, Linda, was like you do or die, right? Either you swim or you sink. Because your job, your small business had completely just put to a halt. And your family it's like, what's going to happen? And I want you to share with us quickly, how you pivoted and what changed.
Yeah. So something that I really love is reading success stories, like how someone made it. I'm always fascinated by documentaries. And, one of the things that you learn after reading so many, groundbreaking people's documentaries is that it's typically when they face some sort of crisis. And so we know that during recession or where there's a crisis, it's an opportunity, a really big opportunity. And so when the pandemic hit Italy, I knew that we were about to be hit with one of the biggest opportunities in the stock market. I knew that my business was going to come to a complete screeching halt. And I knew that I needed to pivot and prepare. And so I had already been invested in the stock market for about 8 years. I took a portion of that money out and I redeployed it into the market right at the low. And I was having very intimate conversations with Patty at this time. Like if it wasn't for our conversations, I don't know how I would have made it to the other side. We were so focused on catching the bottom of the market and really deploying money. And I feel like the both of us were trying to just put a call out to anyone that would listen. We're at a great opportunity. How do you convince someone when the stock market is tanking that this is actually a really important time to start investing? It's almost impossible.
Especially women, right? Because for many years, the conversation of money was something that only men had. It was never a conversation that we were ever part of, and you never know of other women talking about money and asset building and generational wealth. It was all left for the men and the husbands. So it's like, how, Linda, do we begin having that conversation when we know nothing about money?
And on top of that, not knowing anything about money is all of the fear that surrounds money, the scarcity mindset, talking about
So
scarcity and
true.
abundance. Like, how do
Imposter
you move
syndrome.
past
It's all
that?
connected. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you move past that? And so here I was pleading with friends and family, please open a brokerage account, start investing. I know what I'm telling you. And that wasn't good enough. There was a lot of fear. And so I knew that I had to really tackle on the problem, especially as we were watching communities of color be hit the hardest, and understanding that for me, the only solution I could see was to spread financial literacy as fast as we could and attack the problem, which was the scarcity mindset. So I created a course called Wealth Rules Everything Around Me. Cash rules everything around me, but wealth, and it's stemmed from wealth is within. It is not something that is exterior. It rules the mind, the body, and the soul. And when we get
when you talk about wealth, you're not talking about the physical dollar, right? You're talking about everything, your mindset, your soul, the way you deliver yourself, the way you give yourself to life every day, right? That's wealth.
That's wealth. And until we get to recognize the wealth within, we won't be able to actually see the physical without. We may gain it temporarily, but there's still a chase for the outward instead of coming back in and focusing inward. And so that's the course is pretty much based on that foundation. And it was well received by the community. I thought that I was going to do a course for one-time course just to help out whoever was interested in learning how the stock market worked, how building assets worked, how money worked overall. And it's turned out to be a course with now 1,150 students that have gone through the course. And the group is growing tremendously. And it just goes to show how much of the need and how much thirst there is for this knowledge that isn't talked about, like Patty said, in our community.
And the majority are women, right?
The majority are women, yes. We do have a few men that have been attracted to the group and what we're sharing, and it's great. We welcome them, but it is majority women, yes.
And when I discovered investing in the stock market and the understanding of asset building when I lost my house to a fire in 2014. Like, I was at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, which is something similar when you went through at the beginning of the year last year, Linda. You felt you were at the bottom of this of life. And I remember being in the apartment that I was staying at. I was laying on the floor just staring at the ceiling, and tears were streaming down my face. And I felt like, one, a failure, and two, I felt as if, everything that I had ever worked for in my entire life was gone, and I had nothing to show for. And this fear overcame me, this fear that if I were to die right now, just like that, I would leave nothing behind for my child. Alexander was 3 years old at the time. And that fear consumed me, and I just was streaming down, and I was asking myself, I was telling myself, no one is going to save you but you. Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out how to survive this. And you have to figure out how to get out of this hole you're in. And I came across an app that, I came across randomly on Instagram, on how to invest. And then I opened a brokerage account. And I remember I was so scared, Linda. I was so scared because I had no money, and it's hard to make $100.
Yeah, it's funny because when I hear you talking, Patty's been trying to tell me to do this for years, and I'm still too scared to do it.
I don't understand it.
It's not even that I don't understand it, but it's I have the money that I make, and then I have the money that I need to pay my rent and pay this and pay that, and it's all kind of accounted for, and I'm trying to save to buy a home and all of those things. So it's to me, the investing is just kind of but I know
it feels overwhelming. Yeah.
And I was Tanya, go ahead. I just wanted to share that I understand what you feel, and I want to just share really quickly. I started investing in late 2012, early 2013, $200 a month. That's it, for an entire year. And then the second year, I doubled my investment at $400 a month for an entire year. And that totaled a little over $7,000. I left that in the stock market as a long-term investment, and those $7,000 turned into $500,000, and they paid for half of the house that I'm living in right now. So your goals, your dreams, what you want to achieve, you can use the stock market as a vehicle to achieve those things, and to also leave generational wealth, as Patty, is so passionate about, to her children, and start making money grow. The potential in the market is unbelievable, and more so if we're first gen Americans, where we witnessed our parents having to work physically hard for money, but seeing the gains, the potential of how money can grow on its own is astonishing, in my personal opinion.
No, I always tell you this, Linda, whoever said money doesn't grow on trees is planting the wrong seeds. Like, that's honest. That's the truth. And it's just I always say that to Linda, because it's so true. And you're planting the wrong seeds, and it all comes down to mindset too. It's not just working the stock market. You can work the stock market, but you also have to believe that you can get the life that you want. And it's not about having money. It's about having freedom. That's what I always say. It's about having the freedom to spend more time with the people that you love.
The thing is, I think it's all rooted in fear, because even like I'm saving to buy a home, right? It came time for me to like start looking to buy a home, and I was like, oh, I have to put all this money that I saved,
that I worked so hard for,
into that down payment. It's like, well, what if something happens? Like, I'm gonna need, like, what if, like, your mind just goes all over the place. Like, it's just like so, and like it's that fear that's crippling.
And how do you break through that, Linda? That type of fear?
I definitely think it's a process, and I feel that if you just take the steps to start investing, it helps diminish the fear. Because the way I like to look at it is like a child that's in bed and is terrified of the closet door being open, right? The reason they're scared of the closet door is because it's darker in there. There's no window, so there's no light. Your eyes are assimilating to the light. We make up stories about the parts of what we're experiencing that we cannot see, we can't make out. And so like the emergency fund fear, what happens if something goes wrong, that is just a place that is unexplored for you, that you're making stories up in your head, that is completely normal and is not exclusive to your experience, but is a collective experience. It's moving towards that. And when you start to invest, it is seeing your fears. You're able to detect your fears in that moment. And it's like you can turn it around in that second, or you can let the fear overcome you. So I think it's definitely starting slowly off in the stock market, but you have to get up out of bed, turn on the light in the closet. So basically you just have to move towards some type of investing, and understanding that your money in savings account is actually what you should be really fearing, because money is depreciating 2% annually. We don't know how this is going to affect after the pandemic, and interest rates are decreasing. So what you should really fear is the money being in a savings account.
I recently moved all my money from my savings account to my brokerage account. I don't have a savings account anymore. And it's just, it's either, you have to just take the risk. And I think it's a lot easier taking the risk when you understand how it works. Tanya, I always tell you, but, in the stock market, you can start really, really, just barely, like we say, you nibble a little bit. And then
I can do $100 a month.
And you can look for brands that you love, brands that you believe in, brands that share your same mission, with your values too,
right.
You can find those brands. And I think knowing the brands that you're investing in, and knowing the values and the mission and why you spend your hard-earned money on them, I think that makes the fear, it helps with the fear a little bit, knowing, okay, I know where my money's going. For example, I don't know, PayPal, I'm just going to say. Actually, it's something a little bit more colorful. Give me a company that's a fun, colorful one. Pinterest.
Okay.
Women and men love Pinterest. They're using it every day to, work on projects at home, and they love the feeling they get when they're browsing and they're using Pinterest. So it's like they already have a connected feeling to that company and that brand. and they can find it in the stock market and then put a few dollars a month, and you're investing in something you love.
And here's the thing, those $100 that you're like, I can part with 100. What I'm hearing you say is, if I lose that money, I'll be fine, right? It's something that you can bear to lose.
Totally.
I think that's great. You should start with those 100. And I promise you, Tanya, after you start to see the potential in gains and how much more rapidly that money increases than the depreciation that it has sitting in the bank, you will start to center your investing over your savings accounts, or even over spending on anything else that's frivolous. You'll start to say, do I want this, or would I rather put it in the stock market? And you'll
get
be
more
surprised.
excited. You get more excited putting it in the stock market than it is. Like one trick that I've done is, I'm on the road with the kids, they're hungry, and I could easily just go and get drive-through really fast, right? But I kind of pause and say, should I spend the $20-$30 on food, or do I go home and make them a quesadilla and I pocket those $30 on my favorite company? You know what I mean? And
wow, the day my brain starts to think like that, God bless. God bless.
Linda, where can we find you? Where can people watching right now, sign up on your course and get start working toward that mindset?
Sure. So my next course is on May 1st and 2nd. You can find more information on that course at In Lose We Trust. And then on Instagram at In Lose We Trust, we're constantly giving out information about the stock market, what's hot in our stories. And then I am at Lose Warrior, L-U-Z Warrior on Instagram.
And what I love, Linda, about what you've built is that it's a community. No one is doing it alone. You are being cheered on, being held by so many other women that, that never will make you feel intimidated, because we all started from not knowing anything at all. And
yes. Yeah, we try to keep it a safe space, and I don't know what I'd do without the community. We really do hold each other and share information and share knowledge, and more importantly, share support. And when there's someone feeling fear, when the stock is going down, we try to provide as much support as possible and help them through that experience. Just let me run.
I know. I'm such an anxious, I don't know. I feel like all of it makes me so anxious, but it's I think it when I really think about it, it stems from fear. And it's I just got to step on the other side of it.
Yeah.
You got to take the course.
Yeah.
Got to take the course. I do. I really do. Seriously. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. This was very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I love you, Linda.
I love you too, Patty.
Bye, Linda.
Bye.